Daniel Harris is with us. Daniel, good morning to you. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, so does the Carabao Cup matter? Does defeat in the Carabao Cup matter for Manchester United?
Yeah. Well, every game matters. So I'm sure that the players will be disappointed to have lost. As a supporter, I'm annoyed that they've lost. And particularly when you haven't won a trophy in a few years, you want every opportunity. But it's also a little bit more than that, because by going out in the first round, you then lose a number of minutes for certain players. So now you've got Anthony Elanga, Jesse Lingard. When are they going to play? And you need them to play because you need them to be ready, because you want them to play, and you also need the younger players to develop. But that's now not going to happen. So obviously losing in that game is not the end of the world, but it's also not helpful.
Why did they lose in that game? Is that second team not good enough to win games against West Ham at the moment?
Against West Ham's second team? No, they're more than good enough. They should be beating West Ham's second team. But that's how football is sometimes, in that West Ham started well and it was enough. They hung on really well. They defended the box well, and United didn't really create enough chances. They had the one that kept right after Mason Greenwood came on, and he made a massive difference. He was the best player on the pitch by miles. But they didn't have quite enough because the way that football is, goals are rare, and it's possible to defend deep and to restrict space. And when a decent, well-drilled team does that, scoring against them is difficult, and United found it difficult. I mean, again, obviously, they should have had a penalty. Can't really gloss over that. It was an obvious penalty. The referee was looking right at it. So it's strange to think that he didn't give it. But as always, that's not the reason United lost. United had plenty of time to redeem John Moss's mistake. They didn't. They couldn't. And yeah, they just didn't have quite enough class in the final third. And I mean, I'm sure Anthony Martial's getting a load of stick on Twitter because he looked indolent, he looked slow, he looked like he didn't want to score goals. And that is one of the problems when you have a big squad, is that there'll be certain players whose seniority demands inclusion. It means that they demand inclusion in games like this. So Martial's one of those players. And you just saw when Anthony Elanga came on, and he was playing at left back, but he's electric. And he's everything in that aspect that Martial is not. And similarly, what is the point in playing Juan Mata? The guy's basically retired. And I mean this in the nicest possible way. I mean, he's a lovely boy, hugs and all of that. But he's not the future, and he's not good enough in the present for him to be worth getting a start ahead of other players who might play well for United in the future, who could do with a game like this. I understand why Ole played him. I mean, he obviously likes him. They seem to want him to be part of the coaching staff. In order to do that, they've probably got to give him some kind of football. But this is elite level football. It's not, he's a nice boy, we like him, let's give him a start. And the team's going nowhere with Mata. He seems to me to be a waste of a spot on the bench when he's on the bench every game. I mean, in what circumstances, really, are they ever going to bring him on? So giving him a start last night when you could give that start to someone like Hannibal Mejbri, who looks a lot like someone who's going to be a United player, seems a lot more sensible to me than just handing Mata another appearance. Yeah, I mean, I'm not supposed to say I don't get it. I do get it, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
That's going to be a challenge, Daniel, isn't it, for Solskjaer? Because like the whole Ronaldo thing, and he's had such a great start, but it's such a bloated squad now. And you know, even if you are, and I don't suspect Martial is entirely the most professional kind of character in the world, but some players are effectively, whether they like it or not, they will down tools. They had 27 shots and 6 on target, which is incredible. I mean, it looked like, just looking at the stats, it was a game in which Ronaldo would have tried, but Martial is probably one of these players that's now just going nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, there was one particular occasion, I think it was Greenwood who got to the byline, and Martial just didn't run to the near post. He didn't make any kind of movement that you would expect from a goal scorer. I mean, Fergie always used to sell his strikers, you get your goals at the front post, I guess, because of all the things that can happen between the front post and the back post when you put the ball across. But he never really did make those runs. He didn't make those runs. He looks to have lost his gas as well. And he's had quite a lot of injuries. And I understand, like, it is difficult to leave him out, because if you don't, then why have you got him? But yeah, he's someone I would definitely have taken an offer for in the summer. Probably needs a move now for his career. And as you say, Ronaldo coming has made it very difficult for Martial, and also very difficult for Cavani if he ever gets fit, because in what circumstances are you picking one ahead of the other, given that Ronaldo is always fit and always fresh? So yeah, the squad is quite bloated, and I would like to see more reliance on the younger players now at this point. And I mean, I don't mean that to sound ludicrous in a way that all supporters want to see their club's young players playing, and we always think that they're better than the older players. But it feels now that United are good enough to wear using a younger player because there are so many other good players around them. But what the point you make about the shots is they did have a lot of shots last night, and not a lot of them were on target. I don't think that is exactly a facility of the shooting, but a facility of the opportunities that were created, that there weren't that many chances made for a player to have a shot that looked likely to go on target. And that is partly because that sometimes happens, and it's partly because United still haven't totally worked that out, and also because West Ham, as I said at the top, West Ham defended really well.
The Moyes story, I don't know what you've made of it, but there's a lot of satisfaction in watching a guy like that who's, I guess, had almost been written off, and what he's doing there to go back to Old Trafford. I know it's Carabao Cup, but to win with your second team effectively, with a shade of comfort by the sounds of it, I imagine there's massive satisfaction there.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call it a comfortable win, but yeah, I think that's right. Moyes is doing a brilliant job. And what really the case is that hardly any manager succeeds in every job. And every job is different, so it demands different skills. So we shouldn't be surprised to see managers fail in one place and then succeed in another. And what Moyes is really good at is he's good at organising a team. He's also good at finding not elite, but high-class talent. He did it really well at Everton. He found, I don't know, Steven Pienaar seems like a good example. Fellaini, players who no one had heard of, who Moyes found, who were really good for sort of places 5 to 9 in the Premier League. And he's really good at that, and he gets players to play for him. Managing Manchester United wasn't for him because I think that he's not imaginative enough. His bar of what constitutes elite level talent was too low, and the way that he went about inspiring the squad wasn't suitable for the kind of squad that he had, who just won the league by miles. But he is exactly the right kind of manager for the kind of squad that West Ham have. You can see that the players really love playing for him, and they're producing for him.
Can I ask you about Van de Beek last night? How did he play?
He played okay. And that is one of the things with Van de Beek. He is often, or I say often, we don't actually see him play that often, but a lot of the time he plays, he is okay. I think maybe okay is harsh. Perhaps he was one of the better players, but it's really hard to judge him when you see him play a game, then do nothing for 2 or 3 months, then a game. And it's not really fair. You could suggest that perhaps he's not doing enough in training. But even at this point, it's really hard to see a route for him because of the position that he plays. Because
where does he play? Wait, so that's is there a possibility he could play as a holding midfielder? Is that not ever going to be in his future? Essentially,
no. Maybe he could. Maybe he could play as a holding midfield player with McTominay and Bruno in a midfield three. Maybe that could happen. But then what do you do with Pogba? What I'm always looking for this United team to do is I want to find a way of playing Pogba and Bruno and not playing Pogba on the left wing. As far as I can see, the only way you can do that is if you play McTominay in midfield. Like Fred is neither good enough nor physical enough. Matic isn't quick enough. But McTominay's performance against West Ham, although Pogba played on the left, was starting to, if you look at, there's a video knocking about on Twitter of McTominay's passing in that game, the cleverness and the speed of his passing into midfield, which was the thing he really needs to add to his game to be able to play in that number 6 role. If he can do that, then you can have Pogba and Bruno in midfield, perhaps, and Van de Beek is your rotation player. He's not going to be better than the other two, but he'd be good enough when you want to give the other two a rest, because ahead of that, you've already got Ronaldo who's going to play every game. Then you've got Greenwood, Sancho and Rashford fighting for the other 2 places. And it really doesn't look like it will be long before Elanga is starting to seriously push for those places as well. So you could play Van de Beek as your rotation player in the midfield. And there are signs that he might be able to do that. But he played all right last night without really demanding more than what he's been getting.
Okay. So he's emerging as a squad player who, and that's fine. That's, some players aren't going to make it, is as nailed on starters. where is Jadon Sancho in the pecking order at the moment? Because he started last night, and he started in a team that included Juan Mata and Jesse Lingard and Donny van de Beek and Nemanja Matic and Anthony Martial. He must be looking around going, no, this isn't my team. I'm in the wrong room. No, I think I should be in the other room.
Know, yeah, that's true. But he'll know that he needed the game because he's not played a lot. And he didn't play brilliantly last night, but I thought that he looked one of United's more threatening players, that when he gets the ball, things start to happen, that he's starting to move people around. He just looks so beautiful and natural on the ball, Sancho. Keeps it so close to his body. He looks capable of going either way. So although he wasn't good enough last night, he'll be better for that game. And the thing with him is that he basically had the whole summer off, but not off, in that he was training and doing all the stuff that all the other players were doing without actually getting any of time on the pitch that would have enabled him to start the season with a running jump, effectively. So, I mean, I'd like to see him on the right because United have players to the left. Marcus Rashford isn't that far off. So, and the thing with United is that they've lacked someone on the right for a long time that enables them to stretch the play, that helps Wan-Bissaka, that kind of compensates for Wan-Bissaka's lack of finesse. So the thing is Greenwood's been playing so well that he's been playing on the right recently. But before Rashford comes back, I wouldn't mind having a look at Greenwood on the left because he can still come in on his right foot. He's still got good enough right foot to do that. He's still going to look to get towards the box. Whereas if Sancho's on the right, he gives you the option of stretching the pitch, of looking like he might go on the outside. And I think that will help Wan-Bissaka and also enable United to stretch the play. So, yeah, as you say, Sancho doesn't want to be in the League Cup team. Well, he's not going to be till next season now. But it would be silly to start getting agitated about what he has or hasn't done so far because he's coming back to fitness. He's moved to a new league. And he looks to me like someone who is an extremely talented player who's just waiting to explode. So, yeah, I wouldn't be overly concerned about him.
Okay, so you're not in any way worried that the speed with which he's been incorporated into the team and the quality of the performances hasn't been at the level that it should be for the money. It's like a settling in period. Yeah,
I mean, I think with him and with United as a whole, like you can look at things positively, you can look at things negatively. You can look at United and say, well, actually, a lot of the stuff we've seen this season is the stuff everyone's been criticising and complaining about United for the last few seasons. I mean, the Southampton game wasn't good, the Wolves game. Or you can say that in the league, they've won 4 out of 5. They've got the same number of points as the teams who are top of the league. And you can see that they've got very obvious areas that will improve because Sancho will get better. This is not... Whether Sancho turns out to be a £70 million player and a world beater, we don't know if that's going to happen yet. But I think we can say with total certainty that he is better than what we've seen so far. This is not the player that we're going to see from Sancho. He's not going to just stay like this. Like, I don't think anyone would say that. Varane's still improving. Rashford's still to come back. The players are getting used to playing with Sancho. They're getting used to playing with Ronaldo. And McTominay's coming back on his way back from fitness as well. So there are a lot of reasons to think that United are going to improve. There are a lot of reasons to think that the improvement will not be by enough to win the 2 big pots. So that would then put a lot on the FA Cup because they can really do with winning something this season. And I can see both sides of that. I can see the same old complaints and the same old mistakes. But I can also see, that they are improving and they are, as I said, joint top on points with the teams who are top of the league.
If you contrast it to Liverpool, though, Daniel, it's just like it couldn't be more stark in the sense of, Klopp has a very, very select number of players that he plays in, especially in attacking areas. And obviously he mentioned like that he was surprised that there wasn't a proper offer for Origi, but Origi's hardly had a look in. And obviously Jota's either there with Firmino as sort of the 4th player. But surely it's going to become a serious issue that he's so many players that he has to keep happy. And I know his kind of management of the dressing room has been hailed, but like this is surely a ticking time bomb because people just get pissed off if they're not even 3rd in the pecking order and they're like, how am I going to get a game here? And then that festers a bit of like annoyance, I suppose, among other players and so on and so forth. This is surely going to become an issue.
Well, if anyone can persuade someone of the value of substitutes, then Ole is that guy. I was actually thinking about that with regard to Lingard last night because I thought he should have left for his own career, and I thought that United should have encouraged him to leave, partly to get the money, but also partly for his own career. But I guess what's probably happened is Ole has said to him that he'll get enough time on the pitch. As with Ole, you don't know when that time's going to be because some of the time on the pitch will depend on who's available when. But ultimately, being a substitute is a specialist role, and you're a massive part of the team. So I think Martial's got a problem. Martial's going to have to leave. I don't think that he is going to get very many opportunities unless United are desperate. I don't think that Matt is going to get many opportunities unless United are desperate. But the others, so you've got Ronaldo, Rashford, Greenwood and Sancho. Like, those are your first four. Then Cavani's not even fit yet. So he's mostly played about half an hour this season. So he's not even part of that conversation because he's not been ready to play. I wouldn't be totally surprised if Cavani left in January, because one of the things that I found so weird about United signing Ronaldo and the media discourse about he's going to ruin it for the young players and this is a ridiculous signing and what's he going to do, is that at the very basic, most simplistic, simpletons level, is he better than Cavani? The answer to which is yes, by many factors, by many orders of magnitude. And that's not to say that Cavani is not an excellent player. He is. But Ronaldo is a lot better than him. So United just went and improved that position for almost no money whatsoever, or just negligible amounts of money, really. So that was at the very most basic level why the Ronaldo deal made sense. It was a massive upgrade on what they had in that position before. Now, when does Cavani actually get to play? I don't really know. Perhaps he'll get the home games against Norwich. I don't know, those kinds of games. But for that to even be a question, he's got to be fit. And he's not even fit that often. So if he's only fit for 50-60% of the games, then yeah, he's only going to play 15% of those games. Yeah, he might decide in January he wants to leave. And if he does, then he does. Or he might decide that being a substitute in a team that is challenging for big pots is actually a role of responsibility and a role of value, in the way that Solskjaer decided that was the case for his team. Now, if you're not challenging for titles, then I guess it's much harder to keep those kind of players happy. Like, as soon as Fergie left and United were crap, players like Hernandez decided to leave. Well, I mean, I'm sure Van Gaal was kind of forced him out, but it's very hard to keep players happy if they're not playing and you're not challenging for titles and they're not ending the season with a medal around their neck having contributed. But for as long as United are in that mix, they're in that mix for the league title, and I mean, there's only 5 games gone, but they're there right now, then I think players want to be a part of that. And it's a question of whether the players who literally are never playing, really, like Martial and Mata, who are the ones who probably want to leave.
We had Paul McGrath on yesterday, and Kenny Cunningham asked him about, obviously he's a Manchester United fan, and he was like, oh look, I don't want anything bad to happen to Solskjaer, but Kenny asked him specifically about Antonio Conte being out there, and he kind of purred a little bit and was like, I would like to see what would happen if Antonio Conte was in charge of this group of players. As a Manchester United fan, is there a part of you that is like, I wouldn't mind seeing an alternative world where I understand the value of having a club legend, Solskjaer, and I can see the work that he's done in making sure that the squad understands what it means to be Manchester United players, and the value of that is completely understated in football. And I think underappreciated, particularly from fans who are outside the club and from journalists and all that kind of stuff. Is there any part of you that would like to run an alternative reality where actually it is Antonio Conte, it is somebody who is a league winner and who has competed for the big pots in a meaningful way?
No, not Conte. Letting Conte loose with this squad, I don't know. I'm trying to think of an analogy here. It's like giving someone the paints. It's like giving the paints and the canvas for the Mona Lisa and giving it to Animal from the Muppets, who is great in a particular context, but no, I wouldn't want to see Conte with these players. Conte's done some brilliant things. I mean, like when he won the league with Chelsea, the quantity of that was on him was very significant, and I massively respect that. But I don't want to watch Conte football, and I don't want Conte anywhere near the kind of squad that Ole has built. Like, I'd want someone who understands what good football is. I want someone who's going to play young players, and I wouldn't want someone who would, much as I mean, it sounds ridiculous, I want United to win the league, but Conte kind of turns up, won the league and left the mess to someone else to clear up, and much as I want United to win the league, I feel like I've kind of seen enough of that. One of the reasons United have been so dreadful since Fergie left is that they just keep bringing in different managers with different ideas about how the game should be played, from Moyes to Van Gaal to Mourinho, and that's why you end up, every time a manager comes in, the first thing they have to do is start a monumental clean-up job. because they have nothing. They don't want the other guys' players, and you understand why they don't want them. And so, no, I wouldn't want Conte to come in, start selling players that I think are good, start buying players that I think are crap, and then leave in 2 years, and you've got the same thing again. I think what United have done now is they're implementing an overarching structure on the club, whatever, where they're saying United want to play in a particular way. To play in a particular way is going to require particular players. To be able to do that is going to require developing your own players. Now, I'm not saying necessarily, in fact, I'm not saying at all that Solskjaer is the best manager out there for United. I'm not particularly sure who I would now go and get. Looking at the world of football, who would I go and get and think that person would do the best job? And when you look at the job that Ole has done, there is a strong chance, and I totally feel this, that he might not have that extra bit of gas to take them from where they are to where they were. But from him to take them from where they were to where they are now in the time that he's done it is a not insignificant effort, because what he's done is he's rebuilt the first team, he's rebuilt the scouting system, he's got Darren Fletcher and John Murtough who are above him, who are the kind of pillars of the structure that will remain whatever happens. And there's a way of playing, or a way at least that he wants to play, that now seems to be non-negotiable. So the next person that comes in will need to have the same ideas about how football should be played, and that person is not Antonio Conte.
Okay, in a way, they've gone so far with Solskjaer, they need to see how it plays out and to see if maybe he can discover that gas, or if he can add somebody to the backroom team who challenges the thought process to get them to that next level.
Yeah, he's earned this season. I mean, if this season's a mess and United finish a distant fourth or whatever, fifth, or if they finish second or third and they're still 15 points off the league title, then that is a problem. I still think he's really a couple of players short, but if they end up finishing third and they're 5 points off the title, then you've got to have a difficult conversation, because that will be a big improvement, because that means probably that they've challenged for the title, which is what you want to see.
Yeah.
And then you're still asking that same question. So then if you go and get the player that he thinks might be missing, do you give him one more year? And I don't know what the answer to that will be, because it will be based on what we haven't seen yet. But hopefully they're going to improve. I mean, I felt like Scott McTominay's performance was very encouraging against West Ham. They played quite well against West Ham. They should have won it more easily. When Sancho, as I just said before, when Sancho's playing better, they'll be better. So at the moment, again, like, I don't think anyone anyone who thinks that they're certain that Ole is going to take United to win titles is an idiot, because there's no reason, nothing we've seen that could make us so confident that that would be the case. But I don't think that he's someone at this point I'm absolutely looking to replace, partly because I look at the world of football and I think, well, who's it going to be? Like, this time last year, you could think, well, maybe Tuchel or maybe Nagelsmann. They have jobs now. And anyone else who comes in, like, the only sure things are Guardiola and Klopp, and they're out of reach. You can't get them. And so then who would it be? And if the next guy is a punt, then it might be worth punting on the guy who has been improving this squad year on year and has taken a club that was an absolute mess and turned it around into something that looks like it's good, that it's a club that players want to come to. The players are happy and they're playing some decent football, not as much decent football as you'd like. They're scoring loads of goals, and you can see lots of room for improvement and where things might get better. But as I said right at the start, it's that nagging doubt. It's not even a nagging doubt. It's right there for all of us to see that at the same time, the same things we've been complaining about for a couple of years are still there.
Yeah.
And Ole's definitely running out of time to resolve them, but he has still got time to resolve them. And the fact that after every bad result, we sort of have this conversation is kind of strange, in that it doesn't get had about lots of other managers. It's not just, it doesn't get had about Klopp and Guardiola. Of course it doesn't. Like, they've justified their status by winning stuff.
That's the thing. That's the bit.
They don't need to have this conversation. But if you look at where United were when Ole took over, and Gary Neville was on the telly saying it'd take 5 years to make United title challengers. He's done it a lot quicker than that. When Alex Ferguson had a track record, so it's not as good. It's not a great comparison. When he was at Aberdeen, he smashed the old firm with Aberdeen. That was an amazing achievement, maybe even his greatest achievement. But when he turned up at United, he had Norman Whiteside, he had Brian Robson, he had Paul McGrath, who you talked about, like proper great players. And it still took him quite a significant time to win something against far inferior opposition to the opposition that Ole has. And this is also something that I think people need to take notice of. The Premier League I'm not certain that this is so of the actual best team. Like, I don't think the team that wins the league this season will be the best team in Premier League history. But never before in Premier League history, and probably in the history of English football, given that football didn't start in 1992, have we had 4 teams of the level of United, Chelsea, Liverpool and City
100%.
who are very close to the best teams in the world. And not just that, Gary Neville said that on Monday Night Football a few weeks ago, beginning of the season. But what I actually think the point that he missed is also really another important point is below that, your Evertons, your Tottenham Hotspurs, your Arsenals, like all of that, your Arsenals, all of that stuff, like those guys, those teams are much, much better. Every team has a player that can hammer you. Every team has a player that has players that can absolutely take you apart from about, like, so if we forget the top 4, from about 5th to about 10th, 11th, those teams are good. And they have good players, and they are miles better than those teams have ever been before. And so winning the league is difficult.
Yeah.
It's more difficult than it ever was before. And so not winning the league, like one of Guardiola and Klopp, who we know are all-time great managers and have great squads, one of them's not going to win the league this season.
Maybe both. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, Tuchel's not going to win the league this season. So I wouldn't necessarily say that not winning the league this season means that you're not good enough. But obviously the managers that have proved that are good enough already, you don't have to have that conversation about them.
And that's why it happens. That's why it happens with Solskjaer. And it happens because the young boys game happened, and it was a repeat of some patterns from last year. And it will continue to happen until he wins the Champions League and gets that freedom that those managers have. Is like, actually I do have a track record now. And the point you made about Ferguson and the old firm is well made. Daniel, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us. Cheers.
No, I'm going to see you and have a good day, everyone.